In this NVivo 15 for Mac video, I want to talk about matrix coding queries, how to run them, how to change what's represented in cells, how to access the references that are in cells, and then how to export your matrices tables out to Excel so that you can visualize them. So in this video, I'm going to use a different example than in some previous videos to show how I've used matrix coding queries to my advantage in a recent project. This study has been examining what goes on with regard to early childhood writing in 4 classrooms. And we have 101 set of field notes, 1 set for each day that we visited one of the classrooms. And in each of those sets of the field notes, it records all the different times of day that are part of the daily schedule. So you see them, we've got codes for them under activity context, arrival, breakfast, choice time, foundations, lessons, gym or playground, journal time, morning meeting, and so forth. And what we wanted to know was for each classroom, when did teachers use writing with the children? So we also want to know what type of writing occurred. And so I've got a whole set of categories down below here for writing type. And it tells whether it was an alphabet identification exercise, phonological awareness exercise, they shared the child's writing, that the teachers wrote meaningful messages, and so forth. So essentially, what we wanted was a matrix chart that showed activity context, all of these categories, by writing type for each classroom. So I'm going to show you how to create that kind of coding query. So the first thing you do is go to the Explore tab and find the Matrix Coding Query button and click that. And you'll find you've got 2 boxes, one that's going to contain all the items that are going to be in the rows of your matrix table. You'll find another box that shows all the things that you want in the columns of your matrix coding query table. The first thing to do is to tell where you want to search. And in this case, I don't want to search all the sets of 101 field notes. I want to search just the ones for a particular class. And so those were created as cases in this particular study. And so I'm going to do just the class 1 field notes, the ones that have been coded to class 1. So I'm going to select that. So now you see that it's the selected items. You can click and see what that is, again, if you needed to do that. And for the rows, I'm going to choose all of the codes that are for activity context. So I'm going to highlight all of those, and I'm just going to drag and drop them onto the rows section. So for the columns, I'm going to use writing type, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to highlight all of the categories that are under the writing type superordinate category and drag them over to the columns. Now, I've got a coding query that essentially has the activity context categories by the writing type categories for class 1. So I'm going to run that query, close that dialog box, run that query. And it creates a matrix coding query table that looks like this. So there are 34 references where it's choice time in class 1 and where the child writes its own meaningful message. Now, we can double click on that cell and see the actual references and take a look at them. So there's the references. We can go back to summary and see which files. And in this case, you see I've got the days listed, which is exactly what I wanted to see. So let's go back to the query. Now, you can change what's represented in the cells. As I said, the default version is the number of references, but what I actually want to know is the number of files, because each file represents one day. There's one set of field notes for each day in that class. So to do that, you have to go to the ribbon that is at the very top of your Mac screen, not this ribbon. You can't use this one. You have to go to the one when you click inside the NVivo box, it will make the NVivo 15 ribbon occur at the very top of Mac, and there is a view menu. I'm going to click that view menu, and one of the choices is coding matrix. Notice that it says cells show coding references. That's the default. But if I wanted to see the number of files coded, I can come to the drop-down menu and say all files that are coded. And notice that this number changed. There are only 30 files coded, so some of the files had more than one reference coded to this intersection. And this is actually the data that I want to be able to see. So the other thing you can do from that View tab that's the very top of your Mac screen is to click on Coding Matrix, and you can use shading if you want to see these a little bit better. So notice it lets me immediately see which of the cells have a lot of coding and which have the green cells have zero coding. So this is just a helpful way to visualize your data. So this is the preview of the query, and if we want to save it, we've got to do save results, give it a name. I'm going to call it test class 1 matrix. I'm going to save the results. They're going to go into the query results folder, or if I would like to save it into the coding matrices folder, which is what I think I will do, I'm going to save it there. So I'm going to save the results. Now, when you save the results to the queries folder, if you update some of the coding, it will get updated here. But I always recommend that you rerun a query before you take a look at it, because you want to make sure you've got the most updated results. Let's go to the coding matrices folder, and you'll see that the test class 1 matrix is right here. We've got that open. Notice it still says that the query is unsaved, and that's because that means that I've not saved the criteria for the query. So no need to keep redoing the syntax of this query. I may want to run it again if I code or add some additional days of field notes. So I'm going to save the criteria, and I'm going to call this the test matrix criteria. And it goes into the query criteria folder. There's only one choice. So I'm saving the criteria. So now, if I look in the query criteria folder, there's my test matrix criteria, and I can rerun this at any time I want. And actually, that's what I recommend that you do. I'd save the criteria and then rerun the matrix before you're ready to look at it. That way you know it's always got the most updated data. Now, how can you further visualize or export this data? The Mac version does not allow you to create charts and tables from this matrix coding query. So I recommend that you export it out to a spreadsheet program like Excel, where you can do all kinds of visualizations. And you can do that here with this little three-legged share icon. So I'm going to share it as a spreadsheet. And notice that it's already put the file format as .csv. I'm going to call it test matrix, and let it go out to my desktop where I can find it a little better. And I'm going to pull it over and open it up. And it's come up in numbers, but we see the same matrix, and we could visualize this, make charts, graphs, where we have the option to do that in the spreadsheet program. So the important thing is that you understand how matrix coding queries work, because there are lots of reasons why you might want to look either at the data that is in these intersection cells, or in the number of files, the number of cases, and being able to create matrix coding queries can be really important, especially in visualizing and exploring your data.